Today we're going to be talking about my top 10 favorite VR gaming moments of all time. Starting with number 10, and that is the Rancor sections in Vader Immortal Episode 2. Now, I understand that Vader Immortal Episode 2 is considered the worst out of all 3 episodes. I feel like Episode 2 didn't really do much in the story department for Vader Immortal. I feel like Episode 1 is definitely the best out of all 3 episodes, but my gosh, is the Rancor so cool in Episode 2. The way that he has 4 arms, and I guess it has a different name. It's like a Ghast or something. When I had the PSVR 1, I played this over and over and over again, and seeing its hand kind of get up all in your face is always so cool. And even though in Vader Immortal you can't actually get injured or hurt, you still kind of fear this thing because my gosh, is it massive. There's also a jump scare in there, which caught me by surprise because it killed off one of the main characters. I just loved everything about its design, its sound design, and the locations you have to fight it. So yeah, that's why it's at number 10. At number 9, we have the final boss fight for Horizon Call of the Mountain. Now, if you don't know, Horizon Call of the Mountain it's an okay game. When it first came out, I absolutely loved it, but then after a while, I started to realize that there's not much game to it. It does feel like another one of those tech demos, but at least it's a longer tech demo, like a 10-hour one, but it doesn't really go anywhere with all of its combat. The gameplay is super easy. Not once did I die in the game. I don't know, I feel like the game had missed potential. It didn't really feel like a Horizon game. I feel like a completely different game, just with a Horizon brand. But I have to say that the final boss fight is so good. Well, that's kind of a lie. The boss fight is good, but the way it's set up is so well done. Horizon Call of the Mountain soundtrack is actually really, really good, and I just started listening to it a couple days ago. It starts with this really intimidating beginning, and it goes to this absolutely beautiful chord progression. Which actually really lifts up the fight itself. If there was any other music, I probably wouldn't even have the fight on the list. And the fight itself is good, like I said, but also I just think the combat for this game is it has missed potential. It's not really what Horizon is. I mean, sure, yes, you're shooting a bow and arrow, but you're going around in a circle. It's just not that good. Horizon is a 7 out of 10 for me. Too much climbing. The combat is fun, but way too limited. The story itself is super forgettable. I have no clue what happened during the game, but I will say that final fight is absolutely amazing. In terms of the build up, like I said, I think the fight itself is just good, but they build it up really well, which is why it's at number 9. At number 8, we have Arizona Sunshine 2 train section. Now, I played Arizona Sunshine 2 twice, played it by myself and then with Peter, and the train section always stood out to me. It's the really only set piece in the game, and it's definitely my favorite part of the game. And honestly, having a second person there is really cool, because when you're climbing on the side of the train, you can see the other person climbing too, and I don't know, it just adds some kind of immersion to it. There's one part where you can actually look inside the train. You just kind of get this weird feeling when you can see the other person inside the train as you're hanging outside of it. Even playing by yourself, it's really neat. You're trying to get to the front of the train, right? And you go through all these obstacles. You have to climb around the train. You get this one part where you get this machine gun and you're just absolutely blasting zombies as they fall off from a cliff, and you're just raining bullets on them. It's just an overall really fun part, and definitely was a highlight for me for the game. Arizona Sunshine 2 is a great game, but I feel like the sewer levels get really repetitive, and I feel like Vertigo Games is getting so close to making the perfect VR game, but they're held back by not really innovating in mechanics, and their games are getting a little way too repetitive. But overall, I absolutely love this moment, and that's why it's at number 8. At number 7, we have the Lone Echo ship incident. Now, Lone Echo is my favorite VR game of all time, and the ship incident is where everything just absolutely changes for the game. The game starts out incredibly slow, and you're kind of building up this connection with Olivia, which is all great, and I actually really love the beginning 3 hours of the game. But man, everything just changes, and the incident itself is just so crazy. First, the anomaly is getting bigger, and it's pulling in asteroids into the anomaly, which just looks absolutely crazy. And then you're in a rush to go save Olivia because she's stuck in some part of the ship, and then as you're saving her, this giant ship comes out of nowhere. Parts start flying everywhere, and then it's just absolutely insane. One of the craziest 30-second time spans in any VR game. Just so much crazy stuff is happening. And that is the moment where the game absolutely changes. The story goes crazy, and it's just, oh, it's so good. But that's the only really wow moment in the whole entire game, maybe besides the ending. And that's why I put it at number 7. So yeah. Now, Defector is one of the most underrated VR games I've ever played. I hear nobody talk about it, but man, the beginning plane fight is so cool. You first start off in kind of like a James Bond mission, and then it gives you the option to choose between two paths. One where you get to drive a car off the plane, which is absolutely insane. That's the part I chose. And then I watched Tommy just jump out of the plane and then start climbing another one. Just absolute action in VR, and it's done super well. The game later tries to have moments like this again, but it never really does that. So this beginning part is so cool, but it kind of leaves the rest of the game feeling a little empty to me. But it's like 15 minutes of just pure adrenaline. This right here is true AAA action set pieces in VR. I think this is like the only one that's like been done to this caliber and done so well. But it is pretty short, and also the rest of the game is like kind of okay. So that's why it's at number 6. Number 5, we have Asgard's Wrath 2 beginning boss fight. Now, the reason why this is so cool is because you start off the game stuck in the tavern from the first game, kind of relearning what happened in the first game. And then once you pick up the monk, Heru busts everywhere. Heru busts through the tavern and is so powerful that she pushes you out of the prison that you're in, which launches you onto this piece of ice. You can literally see the tavern in the background. We never really got to actually see what it's like outside the tavern besides the beginning section in Asgard's Wrath 1. Being launched onto this massive piece of ice while your sword comes down and you're sliding across the ice. Oh my gosh, it's just so cool. I know the glaze, I understand, like, shut the fuck. And also Heru's animations are so well done. Just twirls in the air, it just looks so effortless, and I don't know. Just great job to the animating team because they made it feel like an actual living, breathing creature. The fight itself is okay. I mean, it's a beginning introduction fight. The music is really cool. I don't know if you can even die in that fight. I'm pretty sure you can't. It's like a tutorial boss, right? After the tutorial boss is over and you lose against Heru, the ice breaks underneath you, and then you start sinking to the bottom, right? And then the Oculus logo comes up, and then Sanzaro's logo comes up. Oh my gosh, it's so cool. And then the Asgard's Wrath 2 title card comes out, and then the music just goes full force. It's so hype. The rest of the game is absolute garbage, though. I'm kidding. But the rest of the game never really has a moment like that until the end. I love Asgard's Wrath 2, but man, in those 90 hours that you spend in the game, there is a lot of repetitiveness. At least it's really fun, though. It never really gets too old for me. All right, now I'm gonna stop with the glaze on Asgard's Wrath 2. Now you might be wondering, what is that game? And I wouldn't blame you. It actually originally came out for like Google's VR system on like with the phone. You might be wondering like, what? It came to PSVR and then it came over to Oculus Rift. But this was like the first actual VR game that I ever played that was over 10 minutes long. The game was about 3 hours long, but it was a really good 3 hours. When I used to have an Oculus Go, this was the one game that I played it over and over again just because it felt like an actual true VR game. And I've got to say that they did an amazing job for what the hardware they were given with. Like, I don't know how they pulled this off. The graphics, I mean, aren't really anything special, but then again, it was made for a phone. So what they were able to pull off is pretty impressive. There were some great moments, but the ending of the game is just so good. The music in Eclipse Edge of Light is just gorgeous and also haunting at the same time. I've never gotten so many chills from a game. And one of those moments is at the end of the game. When you're going up this elevator and you see like the black mist in the background moving around. There's just gorgeous soundtrack in the background. And then when you finally get to the top and then defeat the last enemy, the ending music as you see it's so good. Oh my god. I played that game like 5-6 years ago. It was just mind-blowing to me. It was such a good ending. So good. I have no clue what ever happened to that studio. It's definitely an outdated VR game though. I mean, the graphics nowadays look sad. It was way ahead of its time. I'm gonna stop glazing that game, but it's just been so long since I played that game and I forgot how good it was. Now, Half-Life Alyx, one of my favorite VR games of all time, right? And people have already talked about the Jeff section and how good it is. I mean, it's a standout moment in the game. Jeff kind of comes out of nowhere, is really abrupt, and really changes the pacing of the game. Like, everything kind of just changes there. It just becomes a straight-up horror game. You're not really expecting it either. Like, the game up until then has been good. You feel like you're getting somewhere, and then Jeff just comes out of nowhere, and it's just a big old roadblock that lasts for a good hour and a half. That whole section is just absolutely terrifying. He's one of the scariest monsters in all of VR games. I think the game was really good up until that moment, but this just makes it's so good. Everybody knows that Half-Life Alyx is one of the best VR games of all time. I know what you're saying. Stop sucking on his massive Jeff. At number 2, we have Asgard's Wrath 2 Loki boss fight. Now, this just ties up everything together. I think the boss fight before this was a little bit lackluster. They were building up the other antagonist so much, and then he just dies. I forgot his name. I don't even remember what his name was. But then the Loki boss fight is really well done. You have this whole section where you come back outside the tavern, beginning of Asgard's Wrath 1, and then the end of Asgard's Wrath 2. You can see the parallels. It's just a really cool nod to the beginning of Asgard's Wrath 1 when you first enter the tavern, and then you have to do that same thing in Asgard's Wrath 2. And once you get into the tavern, you see Loki at the one spot that he was in Asgard's Wrath 2. It just ties everything together. I mean, if you played both games, you would probably have over 100 hours, and then it just connects so well. And then you talk to Loki for a little bit, and then it leads into the boss fight. And the boss fight is actually really good. There's a lot more moving than I thought there would be, and it's actually pretty difficult as well. But it also sets up for Asgard's Wrath 3 when you like see the post-credit scene. It really is wrapping everything up with Loki, but I feel like he's gonna come back again in Asgard's Wrath 3. He was a twist villain in the first game, then he was the main villain in the second game, and I feel like he'll be kind of like a side villain that you'll have to like maybe fight once in the third game. But I definitely feel like they wrapped up his character super well here. And in first place, we have the ending of Batman Arkham Shadow. The story builds up over the course of like 9 hours for the beginning of the game, right? And then the last hour of the game is so good. Just so good. Now, for anybody who hasn't played the game, literally click off the video right now. You need to experience this game for yourself. I was spoiled for the ending, but man, is the end. It's so good. It's so good. Camouflage, you guys are now considered one of the greatest of all time. You're up there with Sanzaru. You're up there with, well, that's about it. With the best VR developers. So throughout the first 9 hours of the game, it is established that Bruce Wayne and Harvey Dent are friends, all right? Harvey Dent doesn't know who Bruce Wayne is. He doesn't know that he's Batman. Harvey and Bruce have this really strong connection, right? And you can see past memories of when they were younger, sharing these experiences with each other. These sections are really good at building up the character of Bruce, Leslie, and Harvey. And the whole ending of the game, it's so sad, but man, it's so good. It is so good. When Harvey Dent becomes Two-Face, that part is just terrifying because he's like, I'm gonna kill you, because he thinks it's Malone's fault, right? And Malone is Batman, who is also Bruce Wayne. But of course, Harvey doesn't know that's Bruce. He thinks it's Malone. And then when it's revealed that Joe killed your parents, this whole ending section where Harvey is pointing the gun at Joe, and then it's between the three of them, it's perfect. It is perfect. I've never seen anything more perfect in a VR game in terms of story and build up and just a so satisfying conclusion to the story. Even though it's an ominous and kind of sad and scary ending to a story, it's done so well. And Harvey's the one to figure out that Joe actually killed Bruce Wayne's parents, so he's incredibly upset. He understands the pain that Bruce Wayne is going through because he spent all those years with him, and Harvey is filled with so much anger. It's just so much anger and pressure on him. And this whole section between them, oh my gosh, Troy Baker, an amazing voice actor, and Roger Craig Smith bounces off him so well. It's just so heart-wrenching. Like their voice acting is so good. They interrupt each other. It feels really realistic. It's done so well. Like it's in a VR game too, which is just crazy. So just listen to this.
I made a promise to a 10-year-old boy. He was a little kid whose parents were taken from him by this monster. This is what Bruce Wayne.
This is not what Bruce wants.
How would you know what he wants?
Harvey! Because
And then once Harvey pushes himself off of the cliff, you're holding on to him, and then you visit him in the hospital at the end. It's just so sad, and it gets really scary and intense. And it leaves off on a really ominous note that Batman has now caused Two-Face. It's hard to explain because there's so much going on at once. There's like so many story beats and story arcs that you have to know. It is built up throughout the whole entire game that just resolves in a perfect way. Camouflage did an absolutely amazing job on that. The ending of Batman Arkham Shadow is you have to play the game to really really, I mean, I did a terrible job of explaining what just happened. Batman Arkham Shadow is one of the best VR games of all time. I don't know if it beats Lone Echo, because Lone Echo had, I mean, it's a perfect VR game, and I don't think Batman Arkham Shadow is a perfect VR game. That ending is better than anything that happened in Lone Echo. Alright, yeah, that's it. Play Batman Arkham Shadow, that's all I have to say. Anyways, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I will see you guys next time. Peace, and bye-bye.